among his servants.
All right, man.
And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And by the way, make a couple of remarks here. On the Rosetta Stone, you may recall, roughly the time of Napoleon, they found a stone near Rosetta, that's why they call it the Rosetta Stone, that has the same story written in 3 different ways. And because it's 3 different languages, it was the key to the hieroglyphics and the rest, because they can interpret. But and we talk about that in our book on cryptography. But the point is, what's interesting in the Rosetta Stone, it mentions that the Pharaoh had a custom of releasing prisoners on his birthday. So I just remember that. I thought that would be useful, because it's consistent with their narrative here. So he takes the butler and restores him to his office, which obviously he was well pleased. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted it. Now watch out for that word hang, because that's often misunderstood. You and I think of someone hanging in the fashion of the Old West, a noose around a tree and whatever. We find that in the book of Esther with Haman and the gallows.
Equal share for everyone.
And it turns out, especially in the case of Haman, because that was a Persian setting, he wasn't hung with a rope, he was crucified. He was nailed to a tree, okay? And here too, when it says hanged, he's hung on a tree after probably being decapitated, like the dream described, or like Joseph described. So watch out for that word hanged, because especially in the Esther account, you can see from the translator's presumptions that that's what they visualize. Yet when you get into the actual language and the background, you realize it's a little different. But also, it turns out, especially in the Haman thing, anticipatory of the cross, and you can study that in our Esther commentary. But let's go on later. So he hanged the chief baker, and Joseph interpreted. Now you can imagine the chief butler. He's restored to office.
Looks like good place.
3 days ago, Joseph told him what was going to happen. You think he'd be pleased as can be. But you know, there's something very strange about good news. We take it for granted.
Making Russia
it isn't very long, and we sort of feel we deserve it. Don't ever underestimate a human being's capacity to rationalize. Whatever. So remember, Joseph said, "Hey, just do me a favor. Remember me." You think the chief butler did?
Construction complete.
Not for 13 years. Can you imagine? Approximately, at least that's an inference you draw. And yet did not the chief butler, the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but he forgot him. And therein lies the close of this chapter. We're going to highlight a couple things. When you go through the Bible, one thing I want to sensitize you to.
We have ignition.
Be sensitive to the fact that we're dealing with 66 books, penned by 40 different guys over thousands of years, that are an integrated message. Watch for proofs of that. You'll discover not just the content in the primary sense, but even the subtleties are all interconnected. You'll recognize that it is the real source is a single author, and that author is outside time altogether. Remember when we were in Genesis 14, remember Melchizedek? When Abraham comes to him after the victory over the 9 kings and all that, Melchizedek administers to Abraham what things? Bread and wine. Bread and wine. And here we have in Genesis 40, again, a baker and a wine steward. And of course, at the Last Supper, we have the bread and the wine. And of course, because of that, of course, we have communion. Paul emphasizes in 1 Corinthians 11 and so on. So, interesting to see that thread all the way through. It's interesting to remember that Jesus in his resurrection body, after his resurrection, is always eating. I love that. And also recognize that he's finishing that meal. The last cup he didn't finish. He's going to drink that with us.
I'll point out the target.
Let's go to chapter 41. Now we're going to move now. You can, when you read the Bible, there's from 41 follows chapter 40, of course. Yes, but there's an interval in here that you may be oblivious to, of more than 10 years, probably about 12 or 13. It came to pass at the end of 2 full years, the Pharaoh dreamed. that's 2 full years since the Baker thing, but not. In other words, we know from what
Let's
later on
keep our
when we
distance.
look back that,
We have
that,
ignition.
Joseph was in there for quite a while. It was a total of 13 years from the time he sold until the time he gets reinstated. That's what I really should say. It doesn't say he's in jail all that time, because we don't know how long he was serving. But that's the thing. It came to pass at the end of 2 full years
On hold.
that Pharaoh dreamed,
Building.
and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river.
Ready.
This is the first of 2 dreams that's going to give Pharaoh a great deal of distress, especially since the wise men of Egypt could not unravel this, could not explain them. We'll discover when we get down to verse 8. The wise men couldn't unravel this. God used an Israelite slave to confound the wisdom of Egypt. And it'll be later that another Moses, that Pharaoh will be at the mercy of this God. But let's move on. The ill-favored kine and the lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. And so Pharaoh woke up. And so disturbed me, he actually woke up out of his sleep. You ever had dreams like that? That are so whatever that you actually wake up from them? Well, and he slept and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh woke, and behold, it was a dream. It was a dream. And
Repairing.
and the word rank there, by the way, really means fat. Anyway, that's it. In verse 8, it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. That verse kind of puzzles me, because I've never seen a wise man or magician that couldn't dream up some kind of a.
Not too close, please.
But in any case, they obviously didn't cut it.
Moving to
Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh. See, this triggers a memory here. I do remember my faults this day.
Rockets fueled and
Pharaoh was
let's
wroth
keep
with
our
his servants and put
distance.
me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream one night, I and he, and we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of the dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him. And he interpreted to us our dreams, and each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Pharaoh sent and called Joseph. They brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. That was the custom, by the way. We know from other records.
Not too
to be
close,
part of the Egyptian thing was to be totally shaven, cleaned up, and of course changed his raiment. So he came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. You know, that's a neat line, and that's exactly what Daniel did to his supervisor in Babylon. There's a real parallel between this narrative and Daniel chapter 2, when this young teenager who has been a hostage, in effect, for Nebuchadnezzar, tells his boss the board's gone out to kill all the guys in his job description. And they, wait, you know, I can't do it either, but our God can, and so forth. And that's exactly the way he grandstands it to Nebuchadnezzar. I can't do this, God did, but here's the answer. So, anyway, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river. Now, by the way, in this case, there's a difference, because Pharaoh tells him what the dream was. Daniel didn't have that advantage, but God told him. That's what so impressed me. Nebuchadnezzar was doing this to find out if the survivors really had any real capability. Of course, Daniel upstaged it. Getting back here. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other kind came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean flesh, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kind did eat up the first 7 fat kind. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke. And this is very, too bad I didn't get some snapshots of Egypt, because the shallow river, that's often where you see the cattle coming out of the waist deep water or whatever. Anyway, I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full of good. And behold, 7 ears, withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. And it's interesting how Joseph continually underscores, puts up front, that this is God's show, not his. That tells you a lot about Joseph. Even though he has been abused, he obviously, as he's had many, many hours to ponder, why am I here? My sons have, my father's sons have sold me into slavery. I find myself in this strange land as a slave, and there, through no fault of my own, by trying to be faithful, I'm in prison. You can imagine this kid is probably having a tough time keeping things in perspective, and yet he does. There's never any evidence that he has any impatience. He just trusts God that somehow this is all in God's. He figures he's in God's hands. It's God's problem. Boy, if we could have that same attitude.
Location confirmed.
God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. He says, verse 25. The 7 good kind are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one.
Ready, comrade. Changing position.
In my English, I think I say the dreams, plural, are one, but all right.
Location
Anyway, and the 7 thin and ill-favored kind that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears, blasted with the east wind, shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt. And the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. By the way, the Hebrew actually says heavy. And so what are young people, I say. This is a heavy deal. And for the dream, and for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. And I think that's interesting, because there's these 2 versions here. It seemed that in Joseph's mind that underscored its authenticity having come from God, and that it would be carried out soon. And there must have been several things on Joseph's mind. There were 2 dreams when he was a kid. There's been 2 imprisonments. He was in the cistern and now here. And there's been 2 dreamers in prison. They each had a dream, and now Pharaoh has 2 dreams. The duplex pattern all the way through, I'm sure, must have been something that Joseph was conscious of.
Building
And
Soviet economy.
for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. And now therefore, get this kid. He's telling the ruler of the world what to do. I love this. Now therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt.
Order received.
Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 good years, plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. So one of the lessons here, though, that Joseph is espousing, is that wise planning ahead is a basic principle of practical living. For Egypt, of course, it's obvious there. It's also obvious, maybe less well attended to in our own lives. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is? A man in whom the Spirit of God is? Well, obviously you see what's coming. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Wow. This is where, again, there's a parallel between him and Daniel. Daniel was pretty much in the same boat twice. The Babylonian Empire, and equivalent to that also in the Persian Empire, for much the same reason. Joseph had been faithful in the little things, so God is now giving him an opportunity to become ruler over all the land of Egypt, which was the dominant empire on the planet Earth at that time. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, the signet. And he arrayed him in vestures of fine linen. And he put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him ride. He made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt.
Waiting order.
Bow the knee is the way the King James translated.
Moving out.
It's abrek, which is an Egyptian term. It doesn't really refer to prostration. According to some authors, it really meant father, and to others, native prince. And what they believe it really was intended to convey is naturalizing him as a Hebrew among the Egyptians. In other words, by the intent of that salute, that announcement, was that the Egyptians would put on notice to regard him as like a son of Pharaoh. That he's not a slave, he's not a Hebrew, he's an Egyptian, so to speak. And what popped in my mind, I remember when John F. Kennedy was in Germany. He was invited to Germany. That was his way of identifying with the German people. Same kind of thing. And what's interesting about this is Joseph, from a slave in a dungeon to the number 2 ruler of their world in a day. Boy, what difference a day makes. You can't help but remember also what Mordecai said to Esther when he was trying to point out her potential leverage for the nation Israel. It says, who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such time as this? God was not doing this just as a great big favor for Joseph. He's doing this because the destiny of his people was being planned for. And not just for food, but to bring them together in a context where they could be prepared, separated. They went in as a family. They went into Egypt as a family. And they will come out as a nation. And that's really what's important. In fact, the nation Israel was born as a nation in the first 2 chapters of Exodus. Pharaoh continues, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah. And Joseph said, thanks a lot, fella. No. They're not sure what the word means. According to some Coptic scholars, it signifies a revealer of secrets. And another version of the same kind of thing says it's a man to whom secrets are revealed. Those are conjectures by people who have familiarity with the linguistic background. But again, they're just conjectures. There's not agreement on this. But also as a token of his new status, it says that he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. So the priesthood was in a place called On, and a city which was the center of the sun worship, about 7 miles north of Cairo, and also known as Heliopolis, by the way. And they will, the Israelites will domicile in a land called Goshen, which is the eastern part of the Nile Delta, the choicest piece of ground in Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. I remember he was 17 when they sold him into slavery. That's where I got the 13. I didn't mean to imply that he was all in prison. The point is that's a long time to be, you know, in the penalty box, whatever. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt, and that was substantial. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by the handfuls, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. This allusion is also in the Psalms, Psalm 105.
Vehicle reporting.
In Psalm 105, starting about verse 16 through about verse 22, it reads as follows. In the Psalm, moreover, speaking of God, he called for a famine upon the land. He brake the whole staff of bread. He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant, whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron. So that's a detail that's not in Genesis, but you do pick it up in Psalms. Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. King Sam loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. He made him lord of his house and ruler over all his substance, to bind his princes at his pleasure and teach his senators wisdom. So this Hebrew slave was even teaching the learned of Egypt. This kid is done well. So let's pick him up again, chapter 41, verse 50. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the Manasseh implies forgetfulness.
Target acquired.
The name of the second he called Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And Ephraim implies fruitfulness. And so these are the 2 sons. Now, they're going to be very, very important for a very surprising reason. When Jacob ultimately sees them, meets them, Jacob will adopt them as his own. That's why you have tribes called Manasseh and Ephraim. They're both together, they can be called the tribe of Joseph. And the only place I can think of offhand where that is done is the book of Revelation. It deals with the pair as to, in fact, there it even deals with them together. It mentions Manasseh and then the tribe of Joseph. In other words, what's left, which would be Ephraim. So there's some reasons it does it that way. But anyway, the net of it is that these 2 sons then, because Joseph will accede to the role of the firstborn, in a sense. Because Reuben blew it by that concubine business. We'll go through all this when the time comes. But so the firstborn gets a double portion. So the way Joseph gets the benefit as if he was the firstborn, and he was the firstborn of Rachel in that sense, right? But he gets a double portion for his 2 sons. Together? Okay. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. The 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. This famine was very widespread. That was part of its role, because we're going to discover that people back in Hebron are starving. That's what's going to drive the brothers. But God had some things to do with those brothers before they were ready for what was coming. They had to be tested. They had to be tried in some very interesting ways. And we'll see how Joseph does this. When all the land of Egypt was famished, people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph. What he saith to you, do. See, Joseph had stockpiled all this stuff. He didn't give it out. He sold it to them to Pharaoh's account. And that's the way Pharaoh ends up owning Egypt. Okay, that's another side to this whole thing that doesn't come up quite so clearly. The famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. So this really makes a big difference. That ends in that chapter. Chapter 42. We're now going to see the brothers' first visit in the general category called the New Egypt. Chapter 42. Now when Jacob, back in Hebron now, when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do you look one upon another? He said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy from us from thence, that we may live and not die.
Encountering
And
enemy.
Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. Boy, you just see this coming, can't you? This is one of the most interesting dramas you can structure.
We will bury
But
them.
Benjamin, Joseph's brother, understand these, they're all brothers, but the others are half-brothers. Benjamin is his full brother. All the rest of these guys are obviously the ones that sold him into slavery in the first place. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother,
We will
Jacob
trample
sent
our
not with his
enemies.
brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. You know, this interests me. The fact that Jacob refuses to let the young one go
Firepower upgraded.
gives you the clue that he probably had his sons figured out. He knew these guys were rascals. Couldn't prove it, but he didn't trust them. He didn't trust them. And so
We will
Joseph's fate had
trample
not
our
come to light yet, of
enemies.
course, but
Let's see
the
some
brothers'
action.
characteristics were certainly known
Waiting
to their
orders.
father.
Location
And he
confirmed.
was afraid that harm might fall upon Benjamin too. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. Oh, love this. Does that remind you of a dream he had when he was a kid? See, it's all becoming fulfilled. Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them. See, he knew them, obviously. But when you put it all together, they had no way of knowing him, because there've been 13 years gone by. Furthermore, he looks different. He's an Egyptian, array and so forth, and so forth. And furthermore, he made himself strange to them deliberately. He said unto them, whence come ye? He doesn't say this directly. He does it through an interpreter, of course. He's speaking Egyptian. They're speaking Hebrew. But whence come ye? He said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. And boy, that sets the stage for some fun here. Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and he said unto them, ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. Now, he's accusing him of a spy. Their vulnerable border was
Ready for
that way.
deployment. Ready for deployment.
And so
Moving
this was a very natural thing for him to be suspicious of. It's not contrived. But he's obviously doing this for his own purposes. And Joseph, you need to realize where Joseph is coming from. He understands there's a fulfillment of prophecy. He also understands
Waiting order.
that the family is destined to come down there
Moving. Waiting
under
order.
his rulership. But he has some things that have to be done, and he's going to go at it in a very, very interesting way.
Building.
So he's accusing him of being spies.
Castle.
And they said unto him, nay, my lord, but to buy food
Vehicle
are thy
reporting.
servants come.
Moving.
We are all one
Reporting.
man's son. We are
Order
true men. Thy
reporting.
servants are no spies.
Location confirmed.
And he said unto them, nay, but to see the nakedness of the
I
land
have
ye
the
are come.
information. Examining
And they said, thy
diagrams.
servants are 12 brethren, the sons of
Checking
one
the
man in the land of Canaan.
Changing
And behold, the
position.
youngest is this day with our father, and one is
Order
not.
received.
Ready,
Meaning
comrade.
one has died.
Moving.
And later on, Jacob's going to scold him. Why'd you tell me you had a younger brother? He's going to fix him for that. But the
Waiting order.
Egyptians have a fear
Moving.
of what they would consider the Asiatic peoples coming from the east.
Moving. Building
And so
Soviet
this would be
economy. Let's keep the order moving.
they could be there to see
Changing
where are the
position.
weak defenses and so
Vehicle
forth.
reporting.
And so to give
Waiting
information
order.
to the would-be invaders and so
Changing
forth. That's the thing behind it. And so Joseph said unto them,
We've got the big guns. Each
that
of
is
them
it that I
taking
spake unto you, saying, ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come here. Now, why is he saying that? Well, partly to test them, because he's got an errand to the Lord here, testing them.
Ready,
But also,
comrade.
he'd like to have his true
Moving.
brother down here. See,
Waiting orders.
send one of you and let him fetch your brother, and ye
We
shall be
are
kept in
armed.
prison, that your words may be proved whether there be any truth in you, or else by the
Vehicle
life of Pharaoh
reporting.
surely ye are spies. So he's going to
War
put them
miner
all
here.
in the
Relocating
belief that they're going to be
operation.
in prison.
Let's keep the order
I want you to
moving.
notice how long do you think they'll be in
For the
prison?
Union.
Building.
Take a look at this.
On hold.
And he put them all together into a ward in
Waiting
3
order.
days.
Waiting order.
See, I think in his own mind, he's doing a
Moving.
parallel. They put him
Construction
in a
complete.
cistern
Ready,
for 3
comrade.
days.
Ready,
So now he's
waiting
turned the
order.
time to take them. They're in prison for 3 days.
Location
But then the third day he
confirmed.
changes the
Vehicle
program.
reporting.
Joe said to them on the third day, this do and live, for I fear God.
Ready, comrade.
If ye be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses. But bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die.
Waiting order. Vehicle
So in other words, the idea is, okay, I won't send one. I'll keep one and let all you guys go. That's his change of that's his form of leniency here. But they got a problem, of course.
Waiting order.
They said one to another. Now, notice, they're talking to themselves. They don't realize he can understand. They said one to another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore, this distress fell upon us. They don't recognize that it's Joseph doing this, but they recognize the parallel. They assume that God is giving them their just due for the way they treated their brother. Probably they're analyzing this. And then Reuben. Reuben says he's the guy that you may was trying to get mercy. Reuben answered them, saying, Spake I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear? Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. They knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by interpreter. So they assumed he was Egyptian and couldn't understand Hebrew. And so he, at this point, Joseph can't handle it either. He turned himself about from them and wept. Now, when turned about, not just turned around, he went into a chamber, a separate chamber where he could, be private. Then he returned to them again and communed with them and took from them Simeon and bound him before their eyes. Now, Simeon was required to remain in prison. He was Jacob's second son, and tradition holds that he was the most cruel of all the brothers. That's the impression we get from at least the scholars. But anyway, he took Simeon, bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore, this is what they didn't know, and to restore every man's money into his sack. The money that they purchased all this stuff. But Joseph has their purchase price, the cash, put back in their sacks without their knowledge. And to give them provision for the way, as he did unto them. So this is called entrapment.
We've got the big guns.
And they laid their asses with the corn and departed thence. And as one of them opened a sack to give his ass provender in the inn, they're en route now. They're staying overnight someplace. He's going to feed one of his donkeys. He espied his money, and behold, it was in his sack's mouth. And he said to his brethren, My money is restored. Look, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed. And they were afraid, saying one to another, What is this that God has done to us? See, this is not a blessing. They realize that they are in trouble. This is, it's sort of like these stories you see where one of these robbers rob a small bank only to discover it's a mafia drop, Now the feds we can handle, but not those guys, that kind of thing. Well, so they realize they are somehow, they don't understand how it happened, but they recognize they're in a big suit. So anyway, they come home. They came to Jacob, their father, unto the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell them, saying, The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said unto him, We are true men, and we are no spies.
We've got the big guns.
12 brethren, sons of our father, one is not. And the youngest is this day with our father, land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, Hereby shall I know that ye are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me, and take food to the famine of your households, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me, then shall I know that ye are no spies, but that ye are true men. So will I deliver you, your brother, and ye shall traffic in the land. So that's their, It came to pass as they emptied their sacks, and behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. This is not a blessing; it's a problem for them.
Building Soviet economy.
And Jacob their father said unto them, Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and ye will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. Which in two words, Jacob saying, No way. I've lost Joseph. Apparently, for all practical purposes, I've lost Simeon. And I'm not going to let you take that.
Ready for transport.
Jacob doesn't have to go along with this thing, which gives them a huge problem because the food's going to run out, obviously. Reuben spoke unto his father, saying, Slay my two sons if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. That's his deal. That's Reuben offers a pretty good deal. Jacob said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in which ye go, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. So he's not going to. He's just not going to not going to do it. And
Ready.
so that ends that. That brings us to their second visit, because obviously the food eventually runs out. Time for this. Let's go ahead.
Building.
The famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass that when they had eaten up the corn which they had bought out of Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again and buy us a little food."
Unit.
Oh,
ready.
yeah? And Judah spake unto him, saying, The man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, Ye shall not see my face,
Unit
except
ready.
your brother be with you. If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, Ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. And Israel, or Jacob, said,
Waiting order.
Wherefore
Waiting order.
dealt ye so ill with me as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? Jacob, he's scolding them. They hadn't mentioned the younger brother. He wouldn't be in the soup. What he's trying to do is avoid the decision only he can make.
Unit ready.
The problem's very simple. You got to decide to let him go or not. But don't blame them. You know, it's Jacob's problem.
Building.
They said, The man asked us straightway of our state and of our kindred, saying, Is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of those words. Could we certainly know that he would say, Bring your brother down?
Unit ready.
And Judah said unto Israel his father, Send the lad with me,
Ready.
and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones. I will be a surety, this is Judah speaking, I will be a surety for him.
Select.
Of my hand shalt thou require him, if I bring him not unto thee, and set him before thee.
Unit ready.
Then let me bear the blame forever. For except we had lingered, surely now we would have returned the second time. In other words, it's time to get going here, guys. That's Judah is laying it on. And it's kind of interesting. He's trying to break the deadlock of this family
Unit
tension. He was Jacob's fourth son, you may recall. And he apparently will succeed where Reuben has failed. And Benjamin will, of course, be down with his brothers. It's interesting, Judah was the one that came up with the plan to sell Joseph in the first place back there in chapter 37. Now he is the one that has to negotiate with the father to get Benjamin to go. So
Moving.
their father Israel said unto them, If it must be so now, do this.
Unit
Take of the
ready.
best fruits in the land of your vessels and carry down the
Ready,
man
comrade.
presents.
Ready.
A little
Changing
balm,
position.
Engineering.
a little honey, spices,
Checking design.
myrrh, and nuts and almonds.
At least I have chopped.
Take double money in
Moving
your
out.
hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sacks, carried again in your hand, peradventure, it was an oversight. So they're going to try to take the choicest fruits and the rarest
Ready,
gifts
reporting.
and so forth.
Changing
And, I
position.
assume that these things were probably not that readily available in Egypt.
War
It puzzles
miner
me a
here.
little bit because they're in a famine, and yet they do have some of these nice things there. But again, they're not substantive in terms of their livelihood. And so, take also your brother and arise and go again to the man, and God Almighty, El Shaddai, if you will,
Unit ready.
give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am
Unit
bereaved.
ready.
You can always hear the Jewish shrug there, can't you? And the men took that present, and they took the double money in their hand, and Benjamin, and he rose up, went down to
Making
Egypt,
Russia strong.
and stood
Looks like good
before
place to mine.
Joseph. It's interesting that Jacob
Unit ready.
prays to God Almighty, El Shaddai. That's the God that will provide all our needs. That word emphasizes.
Pride of the working class.
And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them,
Vehicle reporting. All systems operational.
he said to
All
the ruler
systems
of
operating.
his
Weapons.
house, Bring these men home
Ready,
and slay
comrade.
and make ready,
Moving.
meaning prepare roast and so on, and make ready. For these men shall dine with me at noon. The man did
Units
as
ready.
Joseph bade, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. That's
Units
got to make
ready.
them
We
uncomfortable.
are
They wonder
armed.
what's going on here.
Unit
Yeah, and the men
Keep
were
the
afraid
ore moving.
because they were brought into Joseph's house. They said,
Unit
because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time
Making
when we were brought
Russia
in,
strong.
that he may seek occasion
Nah,
against
we
us
will need that.
and fall upon us and take us for bondmen
Unit
and our
ready.
asses. So they're frightened. They think they're going to be captured. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house,
ready.
and said, "O
Building
sir, we
Soviet
came indeed
economy.
down at the first time to buy food.
Unit
And it came to
ready.
pass when we came to the inn that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money
Unit
was in the mouth of
ready.
the sack, our money in full weight.
War
And we
miner
have brought
here.
it again in our
At
hand."
once,
He's
comrade.
trying to lay this right out
Equal
front.
share
see.
for everyone.
The other money we have brought down in our hands to buy food. We
Unit
cannot
ready.
tell who put our money in our sacks.
Making Russia strong.
Now notice what the steward tells them. And he said, "Peace be unto you, and fear not. Your God and the God of your father hath given you treasure in your
Unit
sacks.
ready.
I had your money, And he brought Simeon out unto them. It's kind of interesting because the steward is talking to them about their God. That tells you that Joseph obviously had tutored his own steward about the living God. You miss that unless you stop and think about it. The steward is putting these guys at ease, but he's doing so in terms that implies he has understanding who the God of Jacob is. The man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet and gave their asses provender. And they made ready the present against Joseph at noon, for they heard that they should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present that was in their hand unto the house and bowed themselves to him to the earth. There again, he had the fulfillment of Joseph's dream. Okay, second time. And he asked them of their welfare and said, Is your father well? The old man of whom ye spake, is he yet alive? And he answered, Thy servant our father is in good health, he is yet alive. And they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. Very much, he's the full brother of whom he spake. He says, Is this your younger brother of whom he spake unto me? He said, God be gracious unto thee, my son. Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn for his brother. His guts are churning. And he sought where to weep. He entered into his chamber. Joseph couldn't handle it. He had to slip away to handle it. The emotions are running high here. They're just beginning. He washed his face, went out, refrained himself, and said, Set on bread. Now, notice what he has arranged here. They set on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians which could eat with them by themselves. Because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him. Now get this, they're seated at this banquet table, their special table. They sat before him the firstborn according to his birthright, the youngest according to his youth, and men marveled one another. You'd think they would get a clue here. How on earth would this stranger know them well enough to put them in the proper family order? I don't know if they had place cards, how they worked, but anyway. Furthermore, it gets even worse. And he took and sent messes unto them from before him. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank, and they were merry with him. And the word merry means drink largely. But in any case, so this is you think they'd get a clue, but they haven't got it. Chapter 4. Joseph's got to do some testing. These are the guys who sold in slavery. He's got to find out where they're really at. He commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill the men's sack with food as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in the sack's mouth. You're going to do the same stunt again. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his coin money. And he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. So again, he has set this up, but he's added this cup thing in Benjamin's sack. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away and their asses. And when they were gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, Up, follow after the men, and when thou dost overtake them, say unto them, Wherefore have ye rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth? Ye have done evil in so doing. See, we got Joseph's private cup here, which he not only drinks from, but he's creating the impression. I don't think he really did, but he creates the impression they use it for divining, see. There was a form called hydromancy, where you put in a cup some silver flakes or gold flakes or some precious stones, and you shake it, and then by interpreting like tea leaves, you would foretell the future. That was a form of divination. So cups were used for that in some cultures. So he's trying to give them the impression that this is a very special cup that they've gone off with, see. So anyway, so he overtook them, and he spake unto them these same words.